Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this webinar. It's an incredibly busy time of the year, and I know that there are so many more people who wanted to come on this, but they've said they want to watch the recording. So we will, as we have done for all of these, what's new in 80 webinars, we will record it, we will issue it to all the registered attendees so they get the full benefit of this opportunity. I'm delighted to be able to introduce Streamer. We're calling this Reimagining Translation, speech-to-text provision. Before I introduce the panelists, I can say if anyone needs closed captioning, please, you may switch it on. If you have any questions for the panel, please do use the Q&A function. Leave a comment on the Q&A function, and we will do our best to answer that question during the course of the webinar. I am absolutely delighted to welcome on the panel for today Robert Palmquist from America. Welcome, Robert.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, pleasure to be here. Thanks so much for hosting this and putting it all together.
Oh, that's a pleasure. And thank you for getting up so early.
No problem at all.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah.
And a good friend of ours, Paul Bridges, the AT lead at Cantel School in Southampton. Welcome, Paul.
Hello, it's great to be here.
Well, welcome. Brilliant. So I'm going to share my screen and let's crack on. So yes, it does seem at the moment that the world is awash with text-to-speech and speech-to-text software. The tech giants are like Google and certainly Microsoft are seeing some of these tools as absolutely vital and essential to making the world a more inclusive place. But every now and again, certain suppliers and certain individuals have some ideas that can turn some of these facilities that some people take for granted into quite extraordinarily powerful tools to support learning. At Microlink, we scan the globe really for things that we feel work, and Streamer is certainly one of those facilities. Streamer is something that I think takes speech to text to a different level. The learner can view live captioning, what is actually being said in the classroom, not over the internet necessarily, but actually in the classroom. And they can choose the language in which it's translated into. The other amazing feature is that learners have their own personal web space, a streamer room if you like, where they can leave their own notes about what's being said, including screenshots of what might be happening on the whiteboard or in the classroom, and putting the key information they need, highlighting it dynamically into the transcripts as they receive them. We also have this multilingual, instant voice-to-voice translation of conversations as a facility as well. Multi-directional, so that individuals with multiple languages in the same class can instantly hear and see what each other are saying. Remote support as well as in the room capability. And wow, that's all I can say. Wow. Robert will talk through some of these moments, some of these amazing features as we go through the webinar. But first, nothing speaks louder than a teacher, and I would love to introduce at this point Rachel Bridges from Cantel Streamer School, the Senko, who will be introducing how Cantel have over the last year or so trialed the use of Streamer in our English classrooms. Over. Now, did anyone hear that? Did you hear? No, right. That means I need to share my screen with sound, as this is one of the things that, yes. Now, hopefully, you will hear some music. Introducing Streamer into mainstream classrooms at Cantel School, a case study. Streamer is a specialist speech-to-text and text-to-speech application. Each user has their own web space to keep, store and manage their own transcripts. The transcripts can be annotated to support later learning. Automatic translation can take place seamlessly into a range of languages. And text-to-speech can feature instant two-way translation to support bilingual learners. Cantel is an oversubscribed inner-city state secondary school in Southampton with over 1,000 students on roll. Microlink has supported Cantel School with the introduction of Streamer, trialling its application in mainstream lessons, supporting identified learners, and developing effective practice with a small group of staff and students. In this clip, the teacher's voice is picked up by a headset mic, and the student immediately sees the transcription on a tablet computer. One of the first children to benefit had recently arrived from Holland with a very pronounced hearing impairment that required the use of a cochlear implant. The school Senko is already seeing an impact on learning, not only with this particular student, but for those with English as an additional language.
The student that has a hearing impairment, it's been wonderful for her. She's much more confident, she's come alive a little bit, it's boosted her self-esteem, whereas previously she would miss most of what the teacher was saying. She now is able, as she's quite academically able and conscientious, she's able to read it back and therefore understand what the task was, understand what the learning was, and is making dramatic progress really quickly. Since with the students that have got English as an additional language, because they can now read it in their own language rather than sitting at the back of the classroom not really understanding what's going on, they are much more engaged, they are able to answer more questions, they are being more verbal potentially in the class as well. They are accessing more of the curriculum and basically completing more work, but alongside that also learning and developing their skills.
She sees Streamer being used to good effect with a larger group of students, some who have autism and some who have receptive language difficulties. Cantel continues with developments. Fantastic. So a wonderful, a short case study, but giving you a flavour of what a provision like Streamer can do with individual young people. Robert, so good for you to be on this call.
Yeah, thank you.
I hope you were delighted by what you saw there.
Yes, absolutely.
And it really is quite amazing. But how did Streamer evolve? How did you come up with this concept?
Well, no, it's a interesting question. Let's see. I at one time was working with military intelligence. If you're familiar with the James Bond movies, there's a character called Q, and I was basically Q for U.S. intelligence, where I was developing all sorts of little gadgets, credit cards that would slide under doors and sniff around and things like this. But really loved the technology, but after a while I got a bit disenfranchised with the way it was being used.
Okay.
And so at one point I decided I just needed to leave. And so I did that. And my goal was to simply make the world a better place. And my simple definition of that was, wouldn't it be better if we could all talk with each other, if we could all communicate? And so this is back in 2000. And back then, this idea of being able to instantly translate conversations and caption them was pretty much blue sky, futuristic sort of stuff. And so that's where I started, was creating these capabilities, working initially for the U.S. Marine Corps and their peacekeeping operations that desperately needed a secure captioning and translation system that they could use to talk to the native populations. So that's where Streamer started with the captioning side. And since then, we've gone well beyond captioning, as you showed in your first slide. You know, you asked how is it different. Things like just with the captioning, Streamer does both forward and reverse contextual mapping, and I think we're the only ones that still do that.
Explain that, Robert.
Yes, yeah, sure. And so as a new word is spoken, you're using previously spoken words to get a better understanding of that new word, so you can get the correct meaning of it. Pretty much everybody will do that in the captioning. We also do the reverse contextual mapping, where as new words are spoken, we're looking backwards to update those previous words, because now we have additional context. As an example, if I say the word right, just the word right on its own, we have really no idea what that meaning is. Is it the right to vote, a statement of direction, turn right, or write your name? And yes, and so when I say the word write your name, those additional two words, your name, means that I now have knowledge about how to spell that initial word right. So that's, we do both forward and reverse contextual mapping.
Wow.
And that's why we're so much more accurate than other devices.
That's incredible. That's a hugely powerful cloud engine.
It actually is. You know, a lot of people, you know, do analysis on our accuracies, and we always come out ahead. And that's a key element of doing that.
Well, certainly for learners taking on a new language.
Yeah, and another thing that we do that I think is still unique is that we can caption multiple people talking at the same moment. And this isn't somebody being rude necessarily in a meeting where somebody's shouting over each other, but we could handle that. But in meetings, for example, a lot of times there's what we call sociable feedback. Somebody would say, sure, yeah, okay, or I don't understand. You know, they interject these short little tidbits, and we're absolutely fine with that. We will caption what everybody says, even when you have multiple people talking at the same moment. So that's kind of a big deal for somebody who's hard of hearing, because they miss that element of feedback that is so important in part of the communication.
Oh, that's amazing. That is amazing, Robert. I mean, I'm a hearing aid user.
Okay.
And I find the cocktail party effect absolutely devastating. I cannot pick up what the individual might be saying, but your technology enables that.
And that's exactly what the research area would be called, the cocktail party problem. And so, yes, we have solved the cocktail party problem, where it can multiple people. And as you mentioned, anybody can be speaking whatever language they want. And so if you're in a room with 10 people and there's, you know, 10 different languages being spoken, that's not an issue whatsoever. Whatever anybody says in any language will be presented to each individual in their preferred language. And by presented, that means spoken and typed. So you'll, you know, be able to hear it. So we don't have to assume somebody's literate, you know, is comfortable reading. In this case, we are able to speak it out loud. Speech generation, you know, for somebody who's nonverbal, we certainly support that. You have the ability to use a tool we call Phrase Builder to rapidly create phrases that are going to be spoken out loud. So you could type them from scratch, but that takes quite a while. And so we have Phrase Builder that makes it faster to do that. And you mentioned, you know, beyond the captioning, things like being able to take a screenshot. So a student could take out their phone and take an image of the whiteboard. Their professor has written down a math equation or a chemistry equation or anything like that. You know, maybe you just want to take a picture of the adults around a conference room table, so you know, can remember who was attending that meeting. But you have the ability to embed pictures or videos or PowerPoint presentation directly into the text. And so communication these days is so much more than just text. We have the visuals, Twitter feeds, or whatever it might be, pictures, images, documents, and all that can be embedded directly into that. Super. And one other kind of fun thing, I think anyways, is when you do save the transcript in whatever format you want, Streamer will also generate a summary of that conversation. And so if it's 10 pages of transcript, right at the top, we'll create a paragraph that summarizes the key points of what that conversation was about. So now if you're going through all these transcripts, trying to find that one where the teacher was talking about you know, some particular aspect in history, you'll see it in the top paragraph, and then you'll be able to dig in and read that entire
So
transcript.
that's you've got a kind of AI bot then built in.
Yes. Yeah.
Basically, that's what everyone's talking about today. You've got it built in.
Yeah, and we've been doing this a while. Yeah, I think since again right around 2000. So it's fun. Yeah, but certainly we've gone way beyond just captioning to provide lots of additional features that people really demand.
We'll come back to you for those features and in a moment. But let's turn to Paul, who's put Streamer into practice. Paul, I mean, you saw it for the first time, and you must have thought, "Oh, this is going to be interesting," and you found a student immediately who would benefit from it. So, tell me more about that first experience.
Yeah, so we went to go and visit Microlink to see kind of what technologies you can offer us, and as soon as we saw Streamer, we knew that this would be perfect for our school. Not just for this one student, although that one student we did have in mind came straight, but all to us. It was about 3 of us there, and we all thought of the same person straight away. But we are a school which does have quite a lot of EL students as well, and we do have quite a lot of SEND students as well in our school. So we immediately saw the potential for this piece of software. It's
amazing. So the first trials. You're using it specifically to connect a teacher to a pupil or perhaps a group of pupils, correct?
Yes, so it was a bit tricky to start off with. Before we deployed it, we had to sort of make sure that we had the technology there to be able to use it as effectively as we could.
So now, if I remember correctly, that was basically you had a wireless headset which you needed to not interfere with your school wireless. You had to retune that, yes?
Yeah.
Because I'm assuming then that the wireless headset connects to the cloud where the processing goes on under the bonnet. So the school doesn't actually need to have a massive server or a huge processing power, just good Wi-Fi.
We don't actually. You just don't need good Wi-Fi because the actual headset will actually fit straight into the computer itself. We've got it hardwired into the computer.
Okay.
So the reason why we wanted it wireless was essentially so that the teacher could still get up and move around the classroom, and be able to interact with the students.
Yes.
That was the main reason why we wanted it wireless. But I said the problem with that is we didn't want it interfering with the Wi-Fi. So we did have to find a head unit. Which uses DEC technology which means that it works in a certain frequency, which means it doesn't interfere with the Wi-Fi. Because with PT Rooms Plus, that's not just classrooms, that's offices as well. And we didn't want it to interfere with the Wi-Fi, and we also didn't want it to interfere with each other, because you've got classrooms next door to each other.
Yes.
This technology and above each other as well in our school. We've got 3 floors.
Yes.
So the headset that we use, the JPL one, allows us to be able to have multiple classrooms going on at the same time, all using Streamer.
Amazing. Oh, that's incredible. So you're a youngster who came to you from Holland with a cochlear implant. I mean, wow, double jeopardy for that young person.
But like Rachel said in the video, she's very academic. She was just struggling to access because she basically couldn't hear what was going on that well, and her language wasn't too bad. It wasn't, it was okay, but it's more to do with the hearing side of things. And as Rachel said, when she started using it, the smile on her face. She was our trial student, and when I started using it in my lesson, just the smile on her face said everything. She all of a sudden could sort of understand what was going on. She could interact as well, and that was the main thing. Because I could ask her a question, it came up in her home language. She could read it. She could speak into the device, and then I could look at my PC and actually see what she was saying. So she could speak in her home language, and I could see it in English. So we could communicate, and that's vital in a classroom. So
that's superb. I think one of the points you made there is a really good one. There sadly is sometimes an assumption that every EAL student who comes to this country is low ability, because they can't communicate. Thank goodness we're breaking that stigma a little bit, but a device like Streamer smashes those preconceptions to pieces, doesn't it?
It does, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. I'm going to share my screen again, and Robert, it'll be good if you go through some of the technical specs, because from my perspective, there are some interesting features. We are in this country GDPR obsessed. What do I mean by that? We don't want personal data being shared. We don't want personal data being spilt inadvertently by the systems. But reading what you've written down there, because of the demands of the initial build you had, you seem to be pretty secure, yeah?
Oh, yeah, more than pretty secure. Yeah, we like Zoom here that we're using right now.
Yeah.
Security really wasn't designed into the architecture. They ended up putting all sorts of band-aids on it. So now you have a lobby that you have to wait in and all these things. You know, a term Zoom bombing became part of our vernacular because it was so unsecure. And with Streamer from day zero, this needed to be a secure system. And so we've gone through great efforts to make sure that that is the case. And again, this is not an afterthought. This was certainly built in. You know, as some very quick examples here. All your data is fully encrypted in transit and in rest. And the only access to your account is through password protected accounts. So there are no URL or QR codes or something that somebody could get a hold of and scan and be able to get into it. Some other elements here, just real quick, is that Streamer is not an app that you download and install. From a security standpoint, apps have problems because somebody will download and install it, and then a vulnerability will come up where even though you issue a new app to correct that, somebody may have that old version that does have that weakness on it. So we don't do that. With Streamer, you are simply going to a website. You do not need to download or install anything. So therefore, every time you access the code, you have those latest features. And of course, we're continually updating, you know, to address new threats as they come up. And so that way you are absolutely guaranteed to always have the latest protected version. Again, not an app that you download or install. You'll simply go to the website and be able to use it that way.
Brilliant, brilliant. I love this visual access monitoring. Tell me more about that feature.
Yeah, and you know, we're not giving a live demo here today, but certainly I'd be happy to for anybody that wants to be able to see that. But you're always going to know the who, when, and where of who is accessing your data. So you'll be able to see as people enter the room and leave the room.
That's your own personal room, yes?
Yes, your own personal Streamer chat room. And you'll be able to see who is participating in that. You control that access. And so if you want somebody to join you in the room, you can do that. If you're whatever reason you want to kick them out, you can certainly do that. You can establish the times in which somebody can access your room. So for example, from 8 to 9 a.m. on Monday, Thursday, and Friday through September 8th. You know, something like this. And so you can very much control access to your particular room and also control what they can do in that room. For example, can they add content to the transcript, or would they just be able to view it? Can they download the transcript or not? So in addition to access, you also control what they can do with that data. Again, we take privacy and security very seriously. Yeah.
That is truly amazing, and this whole aspect of control. That is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and other, you know, in terms of control, a very common one is you want to give people access for the next 30 minutes. So maybe you're having a meeting with parents and you want that. And then also data retention. So we didn't get into that one, but you can set a school policy or a business policy where all your content in your rooms is cleared, let's say at 2 a.m. every day, or automatically at the end of every meeting, or maybe every 10 minutes. Whatever you want, you can set a corporate or school-wide retention policy for that data. And we do have some customers that keep the data forever, and that's absolutely fine. They want that permanent archive. But if you're in a situation where, for example, you only wanted each sentence shown, and then when a new sentence is displayed, that old one gone forever, you could set that up as well.
I see. Yeah. So,
and a key point here, one key point, sorry to interrupt you, Marius, but we do not keep a backup of your data whatsoever. Your data is yours alone, and when you clear that data, it is permanently gone. So you know, other firms, Google, Microsoft and such, they will absolutely be recording and archiving your data because that's how they make their money. In our case, we do not retain a voice recording. We never generate a voice recording. And the transcript itself, when you delete that, it is absolutely gone forever.
Superb. So just to recap that then, so if there's a learner doing a maths lesson, they can choose which elements of that maths lesson they wish to archive and use later.
Yes.
And then they can delete everything else.
Yes. Yep. And again, when it's gone, it is absolutely gone forever. About once a week, we get a phone call, usually from a lawyer who's done some deposition, and they've deleted it before they saved it, and they, you know, want us to use our archives to get them the data. It's gone. It's your data. We do not have access to it in any form whatsoever. And again, it's all part of treating privacy and security like it should be treated, which is very seriously.
Oh, Robert, amazing. Now, just to finish off with, before we open up to any questions that might come in, no one's asked a question. I think everyone's sitting there going, wow. But let's open up the minds to possibilities. Use in schools with special educational needs students. Reluctant speakers, those with issues. I love that idea you had of setting up set phrases. I mean, systems like Makaton do that for the completely non-verbal young people, but that sounds really interesting. And Paul, how are you thinking of using Streamer with some of the special educational needs students in your school?
So we have a few students that definitely have issues with short-term memory. So yes. At the moment where we've used it very successfully. So she's able to she'll kind of forget what she did the day before. So she's able to go through that, read it again, and get herself ready for when she has maths the next day or science the next day. So that's proving really useful. Right.
And is that helping the transit from short-term to sort of medium and long-term memory then, by that sort of that reminder?
I would hope so. I would hope it would help her.
Yes.
But even if it doesn't, she's got a piece of technology that she can rely on and use for the rest of her life.
Of course.
So she can cope. She can cope with when she leaves school. Yeah.
Amazing. We've also addressed, of course, the wonderful possibilities of supporting individual students with English as an additional language. I also know within education, there are some amazing schools. I visited one in Birmingham, which welcome migrant children. The class I visited had 11 new migrants in it, speaking 8 different languages, from Asian through to Somali, through to, of course, Ukrainian. What an amazing tool, Robert, for getting a school in one class to produce an education experience with one teacher being able to communicate with all of those children.
We have I was just talking with a teacher last week from Chicago, and she, believe it or not, had 24 different languages spoken in a single classroom. And this is a classroom with 48 students. So, man, I can't imagine her positioning. But yeah, being able to support all 24 different languages in a single class was certainly very enabling for her. But she said the biggest thing was that now those 48 students were able to talk with each other. Amazing. And so you had students that were completely isolated in that entire school because they could only speak a language that nobody else understood, Somali, for example. And now they were able to have friends. And she said it just made a huge difference in the attitude of the students.
Of course.
You know, so key, of course, is enabling the teacher to be able to communicate with the student. But also, she said the student to student ability made coming to school something they looked forward to versus something they dreaded. And so that's very meaningful to me.
Oh, hugely meaningful. You know, that sense of belonging, growing that sense
Yeah.
of belonging.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, and so the student to student communication is also big, and of course this teacher to parent. And so
Yes.
quite times you'll have a student that will pick up the local language, English, but the parents seem to be a little bit behind in terms of that. So trying to get parental involvement in the child's education is very difficult if that parent doesn't speak English in this case. And so beyond the classroom walls, being able to reach out to parents and be able to communicate directly with the parents, it also has some huge benefits for that child's education.
Oh, no, absolutely. And this whole aspect of remote support, especially for migrant families.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
We have situations now with the Ukrainian situation where the child has migrated, but the parents are still in Ukraine.
Oh my.
You know, the mobile phone is the psychological and social and emotional bridge. But now with something like Streamer, those parents can be talked to and
Yes.
involved in their child's education, and they need no other software or hardware than the link to the room.
Yes, yes, and that's right. Certainly, because again, we're running on the internet, and so the idea of local or remote, it's used identical, same fashion. So no differences whatsoever. You know, with respect to the remote, I might mention from a hardware standpoint, you know, we Paul did mention and talk about the microphones needed. But in terms of computer platforms, we don't care at all what type of RAM you have or CPU or anything like that. You know, $50 Amazon Fire book is going to work just as well as a $10,000 gaming platform. So don't spend a lot of money on the platforms. I think Chromebooks are probably the number one being used in classrooms today. It used to be iPads, but Chromebooks and Streamer happily runs on Chromebooks or iPads or your Android phone or tablets or anything like that. So
that's really important for schools to know because money is tight. Yeah.
So don't spend a lot of money on buying some high-end system from a Streamer perspective. Anyways, we do not care at all about the RAM or the CPU or anything like that.
Wonderful. Final two things. You must be used by some multinational businesses, Robert.
Oh yeah. Certainly, especially ones in security areas. So you'll see it like in UK banks and such like this. But we are with Microlink. We're both part of the United Nations Zero Project team, which is quite an honor, actually. And so with the Zero Project team, for example, and this is a group within the United Nations. The last time I was there in Geneva, they did probably 2 weeks, at least a solid week of very exhaustive testing where they brought in people speaking multiple languages, people speaking, for example, English with multiple accents and dialects. And as a result of all that, selected to use Streamer to support their assemblies, meaning their meetings. So that's kind of a big deal when you're a language translation company to be selected by a group within the United Nations as their preferred system. That's kind of nice. And so we were happy to work with Microlink on making that happen. NASA and company Michael were there. And so definitely that was a fun trip.
Amazing. And then there's the possibility of the multinational classroom, isn't there? I mean, isn't that the most amazing possibility?
Yes. And so we do have groups that, for example, we're heavily involved in medical training. And so we have groups that have put together content to help third world countries improve their medical operations, medical education. So they're using Streamer to provide that in a multilingual role. So somebody could be talking about, tooth care or something like this and be able to present that to China and pick your country all simultaneously. And again, very meaningful, circling back to my very beginning, the world's a better place if we can simply communicate. And
Yes.
so I think we've done pretty well at that.
Oh, what an amazing presentation, and what an amazing tool. If anyone's got any questions or queries, apart from, oh my God, that's amazing, which I'll accept as a comment, please leave it now. What we would do is, as we've always done with these, we'll circulate the video to the 160 individuals who are interested in this software. And Robert's already agreed in maybe September to run a twilight demonstration of it for any individuals who would like to see it in operation, run from his computer to yours, just to see what it's like, just to see what the experience is like. And I think that's a wonderful opportunity. I'm sure, for example, schools in Southampton, Cantella are becoming a leading AT zealots and advocates in the area, and we hope to do something similar there. So any questions or queries, do leave something in the chat. Guys, it's been wonderful having people in, but any points to be made to the hosts or panelists?
Well, see, I want to make sure that people understand, to get Streamer, they should go to Microlink.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so Michael, if you have Michael's contact info or such,
of course we do.
Yes. That's where you want to go. We're technology people. We're not salespeople. And so if you have any specific tech questions, we're more than happy to answer them for you. But really, your first contact there should be Michael.
Thank you for that.
Reach out to Michael, and that's the local team, in London. We're here for any sort of really advanced questions, but by far Michael and his team is going to be able to get you started and get you to use. Having said that, though, again, don't hesitate to reach out to myself here at, you can just use info@speechgear.com, and we'd be glad to help you as well. But again, best to go to Microlink and to Michael first.
Thank you so much for that. Yes, Michael Buckfield, who would have joined us today, but he's out training. Yes. And so he would be your first point of contact, and we'll make sure that goes out with the video.
Yes.
2 questions have come in. Let's have a look. So Philip has asked, does this work better on a laptop or an iPad? I think you've already answered that question. I'll go to the next one. Is translation more effective for European languages rather than languages such as Arabic? And 3, when purchasing, do you buy for the number of learners you need or a package for the school? And then a question for Paul, how many students in your school are using Streamer? Roughly what percentage are using EAL? So first of all, to you, Robert, is it a language? Was it European? Is it Arabic? Is it everything?
Let me answer the first one, because I'm a tech guy, so I'll give you the tech answer. iPad versus anything else. So iPad and iPhone versus anything else. Apple is the worst at security. They force every software developer, when audio is captured, to share that with Apple. And so just be cognizant of that. So what we do is we scramble and encrypt that audio before it gets sent to them. So they have to get it, but we use actually 128-bit encryption. And so it's just pure gibberish when they get it. But you will notice, now that I mentioned it, a very small delay, like less than 1/10 of a second, when you're using an iPad versus a Chromebook or a Windows or something like that. And that's because we had to take that extra step to keep Big Brother Apple from listening in on what's being said. And again, we take privacy very, very seriously. The second question, Marius,
was about European languages as opposed to Arabic and other languages. No distinctions, or you're pretty hot on all?
So the first language pair we supported actually with the Marine Corps was Arabic. And so we're very comfortable with Arabic, and pretty much any language. It's over 100 languages that we support, and certainly European languages and Arabic and Indian languages, Hindi and such like this, are all very much supported, and we're very comfortable with those languages. So Yeah,
Nice one.
you won't see any difference between accuracy between, say, Arabic or Vietnamese or English. With English, like so many languages, we do support multiple dialects. So we probably have 15 different dialects of English, including British English and Indian English and things like this. So yeah, we're absolutely fine handling dialects. I'm very comfortable with that these days.
Lovely, thank you for that. And a question about purchasing: do you purchase for a number of learners, or do you purchase for a package for the school? How does it work?
Yeah, and we can do either way, and so Michael would be able to you know,
Yes.
get your price quotes and such. In the US, probably 70% of the schools are purchasing a subscription per student.
Okay.
And so if a student has identified a need for captioning or translation, they'll have a single streamer room that they'll use throughout the course of their day and evening. The other percentage are going district-wide, and in the Middle East, it's always district-wide.
Okay.
And so what I mean by that is each room on your campus would have an associated streamer captioning room. So when anybody walks into any room, they'd be able to see a captioning of what's being said in that room.
Amazing.
The philosophy in the Middle East tends to be, if anybody has access to an accommodation, then everyone should have equal access to that accommodation. Whereas here in the US anyways, it tends to be more focused on the student. We have what they call an IEP, and the accommodation is singular. So Streamer supports both. And typically when schools get started, they have a student in mind and they're going to buy a single subscription for that student. And then as time goes on, like Paul is doing, it expands to now Ukrainian or whatever situations, and it grows and gets larger. But certainly we can support a district-wide element where every room on your campus would have an equivalent streamer room, and anybody that walks into can see the captioning. And when you do that, you get huge discounts instead of a per student price point. You get a much reduced price point.
That was so helpful. And Paul, yes, how many students are you using Streamer in the school? Or roughly what the percentage is of EAL, or are you still in the process of rolling it out? How's it going?
So we're kind of still, we've pretty much rolled it out. Where we are with it at the moment is just kind of maybe now getting the students to use it in a bit better way. So like we've been saying, that they can take photographs, and so that's kind of our next stage, is training the students to use it now. We've got over 40 languages spoken at this school, well over 40 at last count. What I would like to say, if I just go back to the translation, is it more effective in European languages or Arabic? I've had no issues whatsoever with the difference in translation depending on the language, from Cantonese to Arabic to Pashto. And just to sort of really big up Stream here, we had a couple of students turn up and Pashto wasn't available. So we contacted Streamer, and within a week or so it was available. So it's amazing. The support you get in terms of that is fantastic. In terms of purchasing, so if I answer that question quickly and how we do it, so we've set up, every teacher has their own room, because sometimes teachers might be used for cover. So what happens is then that student can dial into that teacher's room. So we do it that way.
Nice one.
And then we set the students up with a free account. So all the students have their own free accounts that they just dial into that teacher. They've got permission to go into that teacher's room, and we do it that way.
One thing I didn't mention, but maybe I should quickly, is that when you do set up multiple rooms in a school, what you will have is a main admin account. And so you don't have to worry about, trying to maintain 50 different accounts on 50 separate systems and juggling all those balls in the air. You do have a main admin account. And you can have multiple admin accounts, but you have at least one where you can monitor all usage and control usage of all the rooms across your campus, and jump into those rooms and see how they're being utilized, or reassign them if a student should leave or something like that. So we do make management quite easily to perform. Again, versus trying to coordinate 30 different apps installed on 30 different devices. And does everybody have the latest version? None of that is needed with the Streamer system.
Oh, that's fantastic. And Philip's follow-up question is, oh my goodness, I would love to see a demonstration of how it exactly works from the learner and the teacher perspective. Phil, we will set that up following this. We will email everyone and see if we can find a time and a date where that can be made possible. Guys, bang on 45 minutes. Thank you, Robert. That was mind-blowing. Absolutely. It's wonderful to hear you talk about it with such passion and also with such knowledge. And Paul, thank you so much for your contributions from what it's like on the ground in an English school.
No problem.
As Robert kindly reminded me, we are we meaning Microlink, will be able to give you UK prices, support you with training, also with ongoing support. So when you get the transcript and the notes from today, if you want to know more, please contact Michael Buckfield at microlinkpc.com. And for everyone who's been on the call, can I wish you a wonderful summer break that's coming. But if you want to know more, when you get the transcript and the video, do get in touch and we'll set up that demo. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Robert.
You bet.
And thank you, Azadar, for hosting. Have a great rest of the day, everyone. Thank you.
All right. Bye now.
Bye-bye.